Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Phil and Vanio again with The Athlete Spine. Today we're actually going to talk about one of everyone's favorite villains in one of the worst and most frustrating sports alive.
Well, he's your villain or hero, depending on your perspective, I suppose. And that's Tiger Woods. And both of us are both pretty avid golfers, and golf is played by millions and millions of people around the country and world. And so I think everyone knows that Tiger Woods has had a long history of back problems. And the goal of today is to help just try to demystify some of the injuries that Tiger Woods has had and what his problems have been, and to help you understand a little bit about what he's been through in terms of his 5 spine operations.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, right? Like he has been through a lot over the past decade, aside from the spine injuries, but we'll focus on that one today.
We're not going to talk about his ankle injury today, but more so the history of his spine.
So you said 5 spine injuries, and 5 spine surgeries, in fact.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Why does this happen? I mean, is this common?
Yeah, so unfortunately, for anyone who's played golf knows that golfing and back problems kind of go hand in hand. And the reason is that if you think of the modern golf swing, the whole point is to twist and contort your body into a position where you can generate a lot of torque and a lot of speed with your club to try to hit the ball as far as you can and hopefully straight. Not so much.
But this is Tiger Woods, right? You would think that this is someone who's really perfected their swing. Me, on the other hand, right? You watch my swing and you're like, yes, this is a guy who probably has back pain. So
this swing is terrible. Let's be honest.
I don't even have a comeback there. It's not great. My handicap is fighting with the high temperatures in Palm Desert right now. So even in someone who has a very fluid swing, they can still develop spine problems, it sounds like. So what exactly did he go through?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, I mean, back when Tiger first came onto the tour in the late 90s, no one swung the club like him, and he basically popularized this swing where he just generated unbelievable amounts of torque, twisting his hips and his shoulders. But unfortunately, the downside of that was that it just really put a lot of stress on his spine. And his first injury that he ended up having surgery for was an injury to the disc in the lowest part of his spine. And the disc, if you remember, these are the shock absorbers between the bones of the spine. And what happened to Tiger Woods is that he developed a disc herniation. What that means is that a piece of the disc material that should stay between the bones broke off and went back and pushed on his nerves and was causing pain in his back and pain traveling down his leg.
And I know that sounds like a big injury for someone, especially who's always swinging a club and is always sort of twisting their back. But you have to remember, disc herniations are really common, right? It's not just high-level golfers or low-level golfers experience this type of pain, but anyone in their daily lives can experience some sort of injury which herniates their disc. And sure, maybe this happens in a golfer. And what did he have done the first couple times?
Yeah, so he had 3 procedures called microdiscectomies. And this is probably the most common spine surgery done anywhere in the world. And it typically is done, by a tiny incision, and a surgeon goes in and removes a small bit of bone and basically goes and takes out the piece of disc herniation that's pushing on a nerve. And in most cases, this is a very, very successful operation. It relieves the pain in traveling down someone's leg because it takes pressure off the nerves.
And we were like, after these microdiscectomies, these surgeries, he was actually able to return back to competition and relatively competitive play.
Yeah, kind of. I think anyone watching Tiger during that period of time saw that he was not really quite the same golfer. I mean, there were times that he would hit a shot and be wincing in pain. It was pretty obvious that he was still having some discomfort. And the reason is that ultimately he had a disc that was so diseased and kept on reherniating and reherniating and reherniating that it was never able to heal to the extent that truly allowed him to return to the kind of golfer that drew millions of fans and wowed the entire world.
And we see this in our patients too, right? It's common, right? There's a 5 to 10% chance that someone who's undergone a discectomy will have a reherniation. And I think oftentimes for us and for a lot of our colleagues, if they've had 2 reherniation events, trying to undergo a third sort of discectomy procedure, we start thinking about results that are less reliable.
Yeah, and in Tiger Woods' case, I think understandably so, everyone worried about what would happen if Tiger had a more definitive surgery, meaning that the bones were actually fused together. And that's ultimately what he ended up having. But he did have 3 microdiscectomies before ultimately his doctors and Tiger decided that the best chance for him to get back to a life where he'd actually walk around and play with his kids and just do normal day-to-day activities, that this is going to require a more definitive surgery.
And fusion sounds like a big, scary procedure, right? And we're not talking about a long fusion that spans from the middle of your back down to the bottom, but it was just a single level. And, there's a lot of ways to do that fusion, ultimately, right? We as surgeons have tried to find different avenues that serve different goals in the procedure. Particular to Tiger's situation at L5S1, there's 2 main approaches. We can go from the back, which is a posterior approach, or you can go from the stomach area, which is an anterior approach.
And just to be clear, with a fusion, what we're trying to do as surgeons is to take 2 bones that are meant to be separated by a disc, and get those 2 bones to grow together to become one continuous bone. And the way that Tiger had his surgery was the incision was actually in his belly. And so the surgeons went in through the front, removed the diseased disc, and then put a spacer with bone graft and screws to hold those bones together to allow those 2 bones to heal together to become one bone.
Wait. So you're fusing a level together, right? You're talking about bone forming there. That segment's really important, and it used to move a lot, and he needs it. How is he able to go back to golf?
I think so. The main goal of surgery for him was just to get back to a normal life, to be able to play with his kids, to be able to do the normal tasks that any of us do on a day-to-day basis. And I think that getting back to professional golf was somewhat of an afterthought. But then as time went on, Tiger realized that, hey, he didn't have that back pain anymore. He didn't have that leg pain anymore from his nerve being compressed. And I think potentially going back to playing professional golf became a reality for him.
Yeah, and from a biomechanics standpoint, right, there's multiple discs in your lower back or in the lumbar spine that allow us to move in all these different directions. And even though you're fusing one level, albeit a fairly important one, we can still rely on all these other adjacent levels to help perform some of the maneuvers that he needs for golf, as well as your hip joints as well. And in fact, he was able to do that in a glorious fashion, in fact.
Yeah, he won a Masters after having a spine fusion, which is if you think about it, is kind of crazy. But it really does open up a lot of opportunities for other people who have had these types of injuries. And I think it makes you realize that you can actually return to pretty high level activity after something like a spine fusion.
Yeah, and we were really excited to actually talk about this topic today, not just because we wince when we watch each other's golf shots, but more so that, we know that golfers have lumbar spine problems all the time. In a lot of other sports and injuries, there's these formal guidelines or algorithms about how to return back to play. And in golf, we just really aren't there yet. And so Tiger Woods really serves as a great example of what actually can be done from a performance standpoint after this type of surgery.
And I think that as time goes on, we'll hopefully as a field develop more algorithms to really understand how different types of spinal injuries affect return to play, and this will help us counsel our own patients who play golf, albeit not in the PGA or the LIV, but understanding when they can return to play, what they can expect after an injury like this.
I mean, so the bottom line is this, right? Not everyone's going to win a Masters, 18 months after a fusion, but I think it goes to show that if you really enjoyed the game of golf before, having a single level fusion in your lower back doesn't prohibit you from doing that in the future. And it's really just a recovery process, which we'll discuss in a future video, but Tiger really shows and demonstrates a highlight as to, again, what's possible. And I think for us, it's a lot of fun to think about.
So if you have any questions, please let us know and post comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram @TheAthleteSpine. Until next time.
All right, see you all
Take
later.
care, guys.